As most people probably know, I believe that the GOP in 2026 will actually have a fairly good year. Now, I am not saying that that means Republicans will retain control of the House or whatever. I'm not saying that. But I do believe, compared to prior midterms, I do believe that Republicans are actually in a very good situation. I mean, yeah, they're not that popular. Right now, their approval rating's like 41% or whatever, which is not that good. I'm not saying it is. But compared to Democrats, that is way better. Democrats right now are like 20%, 21%, maybe 25% on a good day. Everyone hates them. The average voter believes they're delusional, they're out of touch. They may not like Republicans, but they hate the Democrat Party. Well, despite that, there still is a chance that the GOP can screw this up. And it looks like we got some real bad news out of Georgia, as apparently Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is seriously considering a run for Senate in 2026, according to two sources familiar with the matter. Yeah, MTG might actually run for the Senate. Listen, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a MAGA Republican. I don't care what type of Republican you are. I think most people can agree this would be an utter disaster. All right? Now, the good news is it's only if Brian Kemp doesn't run, which I still think he does. But lately, there's been some hints that maybe he doesn't. He may actually run for president in 2028 for whatever reason. But the point is, if Brian Kemp is a dumbass and doesn't run, there is like a 99.9% chance that she runs and wins the primary, because more than likely she gets the Trump endorsement, and at that point we would be utterly screwed. MTG is an awful candidate, and at this point she's not even the best on the issues, which we'll get to that in a second. But guys, for those that are saying, well, this is just anonymous sources saying this, it's not real, well, look at what she posted just, what is this? Yeah, yesterday. She posted this yesterday saying, my vision for Georgia. It's a 36-minute long video. I'm not going to play it, but listen, when you listen to what she is saying, if Kemp does not run, she's running. And she's probably going to win the nomination. So it's not just some bullshit report from some anonymous source that no one ever heard about. No, she's basically confirming that, yeah, if Kemp doesn't run, I'm going to run. And that would be an utter disaster. Guys, does anyone really think MTG can win? It doesn't matter if you like her or not. I don't really like her, but guys, if you're honest, no one thinks she can win. There's not a single honest person that believes she can win. Because guess what? She's unpopular, and she would be an electoral cancer in 2026. Guys, I don't know how she could win. Just honestly, how? I mean, MTG would not win. I just don't see a pathway for it. I mean, just look at the polling, which I know the polling is not everything, but look at this. They had a poll a couple months ago, and I know this was back in January, and this was the Tyson group, which, listen, it's only one poll, I get that, but MTG was down by 12 points against Jon Ossoff. Compare that to anybody else, like Brian Kemp. That same poll had him winning by 7. Hell, Buddy Carter, who is really not known, does better than MTG. He loses by 8 points, but again, that's name recognition. That's the only reason he's down by 8. MTG, meanwhile, she's at 39%, which is awful. I mean, guys, everyone knows who MTG is. It's not like no one knows. No, the average person knows who she is, and she's only at 39%. But the worst part is, Jon Ossoff is already at 51%. You know, that's a magic number. You get above 50%, especially in Georgia, you win no matter what. All right, that's just a fact. It's just basic math. But in Georgia, you get 50% of the vote, you avoid a runoff. So, yeah, according to this poll, which they polled other people like Buddy Carter and Brian Kemp, she is by far the weakest candidate, and you can't use name recognition. That's a bullshit excuse, especially for this circumstance. And for Buddy Carter, that's one thing. There's someone random like that, like Mike Collins. Yeah, that's a different story. But MTG has universal name recognition, and she's at 39%. That is pathetic. She doesn't even crack 40%. Hell, Buddy Carter gets the same percent as she does. So, yeah, she is not a strong candidate. Far from it. She should be nowhere near the nomination. But the sad part is, if Brian Kemp is a dumbass and thinks, oh, you know what? I'm not going to run for Senate. No, I'm going to run for president in 2028, which, yeah, that's a real report, that he's actually considering doing that. If he's a dumbass and does that, we are stuck with MTG and we're going to lose. And not by some tiny margin. I'm not talking about a 1-point defeat, which would be respectable, especially in a midterm like 2026 is going to be like, okay, fine, a 1-point defeat, whatever. That's not the end of the world, especially against Jon Ossoff, who I think is overrated, but he is the incumbent. That's one thing, all right? If she loses by 1 or 2, okay, whatever. That's not the end of the world. No, I really believe if she runs, she would lose by like 5 to 10 points. Yeah, I really believe that. And the reason I say that is MTG is a massive underperformer. Okay, that's a fact. She underperformed Trump by like 10 points in 22, 10 points in 2024, and we're not talking about a Democrat part of the state. No, we're talking about northern Georgia. This area is super conservative, super Trumpy. Trump won it by like 40, 50 points. It's a landslide every year. And yeah, MTG won it by like 30, but she underperformed Trump by like 10 or whatever it was, or like 15 points or whatever. Now, that's in the Republican part of the state. This is a part of the state that you would think she would do great in. But no, she did horrible here. Now, imagine what happens in a place like Gwinnett, a place like Cobb. What do you think's going to happen here? The suburbs of Atlanta are going to be like 60% Democrat. And that's a bare minimum. That's probably like 65%. Because these voters, they're not going to vote for MTG. If she is struggling with voters in rural Georgia, I mean, northern Georgia especially, what do you think's going to happen here in Cobb? What do you think's going to happen to a place like Douglas, Newton, Henry? These areas are going to swing like 10, 15 points, maybe 20 points Democrat. That's the problem. She does awful in the rural parts of the state, and she would do even worse in Atlanta. She would collapse here, worse than Trump. And, you know, Trump did do better in some areas of Atlanta compared to prior years. But still, compared to, like, Republicans from 10 years ago, it's pretty bad of a performance. But MTG would make Trump's performance look great in comparison. And that's the problem. She would do horrible in the suburbs and the urban core. She would do horrendous, okay? And that's without factoring in what's going to happen in the rural parts of the state. If she's struggling in northern Georgia, it's going to be an utter disaster across the rest of the state. That's why I'm saying, no, we cannot support MTG if she runs. I will support anybody else. Because, like, Georgia Republicans, they're not the best. There's some good ones, but at least the average Republican that's going to run, he's going to be decent. He's not going to be perfect, but he's going to be decent. And he's going to probably win, all right? More than likely. Because Jon Ossoff, he has a lot of trouble in Georgia. I mean, guys, he is losing the Jewish support. Yeah, that's a real thing. He is struggling with Jewish voters, which were a big reason that he won in 2020. Those same voters, they're bailing on him. They're begging Brian Kemp to run. So, yeah, he has a lot of problems in the state. But if you run MTG, he's going to win. He's going to win easily. So that's why I'm saying no. Do not support MTG. Support basically anybody else. I mean, of the candidates running or that have publicly expressed interest, any of them would be better than MTG. All right, they're not perfect, but compared to MTG electorally, I would rather have somebody like Buddy Carter, somebody like John King, just anybody else that's not named her. All right, that's just my opinion, because I don't think she can win. And if I'm being honest, do you really trust MTG? Because if she somehow won, by some miracle, if she won, would you really trust her? This is not the MTG of 2020 or 2021. It's not. And that's what some people are not understanding. The MTG of 2020, 2021 was fantastic. Yes, she had some weird takes here and there. She said some very Very interesting things. But you can live with that because A, she was still very good on the issues, like on basically everything, and B, funny enough, in 2020, she actually outran Trump in Georgia, right? In Georgia's 14th. Yeah, she outran Trump in 2020, but ever since then, I don't know what happened. She completely lost it. She's not that good on the issues anymore. And quite frankly, she doesn't understand what the base wants anymore. So, why do people want her to run? Why? What's the purpose of MTG running? You can't trust her anymore. Not just in the House, but can you imagine her in the Senate? Oh my goodness, if you think she's bad in the House, she would be 100 times more useless in the Senate. That's why I'm saying don't support her. And if she won the nomination by some miracle, don't spend a dime here. I'm sorry, don't spend anything because you're not going to win. Spend the money on North Carolina, Michigan, any other state not named Georgia. I'm sorry, but at that point, out to the governor's race, why should we spend money here? Everyone knows she's going to lose, and by a lot. Why the hell would we spend any kind of money here? The only way she could win is if John Ossoff has, like, the biggest scandal in 2026. Like, a real bad scandal that sinks him. That's the only way she can win. And even then, it may not be enough. I just don't see her winning whatsoever. So I'm just hoping that Brian Kemp runs. Just please, Kemp, run. Don't do what Chris Sununu's about to do and run for president. That's a dumbass move to make because you're not going to win. You're going to get like 5% of the vote, if that, and you're done politically forever. You're never going to win anything ever again. It's a stupid move. And if you really want to run for president, just run for the Senate seat. Just run for the Senate seat and decide in 2027 if you want to run for president. Just do that. And at that point, fine, whatever, I don't care. You're going to lose, but at least you ran for the Senate seat. You're going to win by a lot. Worst case scenario, you're still in the Senate. Just do that. Don't do, oh yeah, we're going to run for president to stop MAGA or whatever. No, that's dumb. Because you're not going to even win the primary. And you're hurting the GOP, like Chris Sununu did in New Hampshire. He shafted us with what he pulled. Yet again, this is the second time he pulled this stunt. And now, we could possibly be losing a very winnable race in New Hampshire, and now possibly Georgia. So Brian Kemp, please run. I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I would much rather have Kemp in the Senate, and as our candidate, than MTG. Hell, I would have anybody else, even Rich McCormick, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I think he's kind of a dumbass too. But I would much rather have Rich McCormick than MTG. There, I said it. And I'm not even a fan of McCormick, but at least with him, he could maybe win. John King, just somebody else not named MTG. I just cannot support her whatsoever. And I hope people don't. I hope people realize she can't win. This is not the same MTG from 5 years ago. Do not support her. Do not give her a cent of your money. Do not give her any support whatsoever. But we shall see what happens. I'm just hoping that Brian Kemp realizes, oh crap, if I don't run, we're stuck with MTG and we're screwed. So you know what? I'm going to run for Senate and we don't have to worry about her ever again. But who knows? Maybe that doesn't happen and we really are stuck with MTG, which would be worst case scenario. It would kill us in 2026. And, you know, it hurts us in the long run. Because you win this Georgia Senate seat, you have the Senate for a very long time already. But if you win a place like Georgia and Michigan, the chances of Democrats retaking the Senate for like 20 years is very slim. But anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.